Jerome Powell just delivered the news that every real estate investor has been waiting for.
Today, the Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by a 1/4 percentage point.
Here's the full story. The Fed started raising rates in March 2022, starting at near zero. By July 2023, rates hit 5.5%. This was the fastest rate hike in history. Today, the Fed lowered rates by 25 basis points. They cut them to 4 to 4.25. Powell also signaled something very important: 2 more rate cuts coming before the end of the year. Here's the key shift. We're now moving from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. To understand how all of this works in the economy, we have to understand what quantitative easing is and what quantitative tightening is. In quantitative tightening, the Fed is literally destroying money and liquidity in the system. That's what we've experienced for the last 3 years. That's why it's felt like there hasn't been as much money in circulation. There hasn't been realistic transactions. There hasn't been major purchases. The volume of transactions has gone down. Yes, there have been purchases, but it's been much slower than historical. Quantitative easing is money printing. The Fed buys bonds from banks using newly created money. They literally create the money out of thin air using keystrokes. I know this is super technical, but this is how it works. The banks now have more reserves to lend out to you, to consumers, multiplying the money supply. Here's an example. The Fed buys $1 billion in bonds from JP Morgan, creating $1 billion in new bank reserves at JP Morgan. JP Morgan then lends this out, increasing the money supply by $1 billion. So that's what quantitative easing is. The Fed can only buy bonds from primary dealers. Currently, there's 25 major financial institutions. You heard of them all. These are the Citigroups, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Barclays, Deutsche Bank, etc. Okay? We've just come out of quantitative tightening. We needed to curb inflation, the actual destruction of money. The Fed has been letting bonds mature without replacing them. Currently, $60 billion a month. That's a lot of money. When the bonds mature, the Treasury pays back the Fed by reducing the Treasury's account at the Fed. This electronic payment literally takes money out of the system. No new reserves are created. So money that was created out of thin air now disappears. It's erased into thin air. Bank reserves shrink, reducing lending capacity and reducing the money supply. Here are some key numbers. The Fed's balance sheet peaked at $9 trillion, or 36% of GDP, in April 2022. Through quantitative tightening over the last 3 years, the Fed reduced assets by $750 billion since June 2022. So we're moving from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. And this psychology shift, an actual shift, changes everything. Investors are moving from wait and see to time to deploy. Because remember, when interest rates go down, real estate prices go up, okay? Money is about to flood back into deals. We're already seeing it here in Miami. Hopefully, this is the start of the real estate cycle turning. Are you ready?